when even the best laid of plans don't necessarily come to fruition. A tale of betrayal, survival, and the workings of the divine. It began like a fairy tale. A chance meeting turned into a wildfire romance, and before you could even process all of it fully, there you were, exchanging vows in a quiet courthouse. No best friends, no parents, no joyous outward celebration, just whispered promises, papers signed, and the illusion of something sacred being born. You were convinced that this was love, the real kind, the forever kind. You could kind of wrap yourself up in the idea of being a soulmate, believing maybe you had met the one who would stand by you in every season. And you ignored the slight chill in their tone when you opened up to them. You made excuses for their distant glances and their unexpected mood swings. Love, you told yourself, was a choice, and you had chosen to believe in this love. You chose to believe in the dream. But really and truly, something else had chosen you too. Something dark, something quiet, something patient, a dark entity. It started subtly, a random tightness in your chest, like something unseen was pressing down on you. You brushed it off, but then came these near accidents. The strange fatigue, the feeling of being suspended in molasses, stuck, slow, dimmed. You began to feel like a guest in your own body, and a shadow of your former self, as if you were being drained away. And then came the dreams. You woke up gasping, unable to remember why. You sensed things moving at the edge of your bed. You found small signs, objects misplaced, and even once a white feather resting on the mattress. You'd ask them about it, gently and cautiously, as if they experienced anything odd as well. And they said no, no all too quickly. And deep down, you started to suspect, in truth, that maybe something else is going on that you didn't quite want to face. Their energy grew lighter as yours dimmed. They smiled more, they spoke more of the future with eerie confidence, dropping vague lines about things working out and our legacy. You didn't know then that they had secretly taken out a life insurance policy on your life. You didn't know that they were watching the slow fade in your vitality with cold anticipation. Because all the while you thought they loved you, but you realized that they were in love with the concept of you. And they were expecting the attack to come. Things whispered in the dark, things that didn't hold. So you still lived, despite all of the odd occurrences that came around. And they walked into the insurance office on a day where they thought it was time to celebrate, and the clerk told them that the marriage certificate looked suspicious, that something was up, the records didn't match. But more importantly, the clerk said, "There's no record of your death." And the person replied, "You're mistaken. It can't be." Because in their minds, it was all but assured. This was foolproof. They'd hired practitioners. It was almost as if you had violated something sacred with them. That maybe during a conversation you said something that struck an old nerve. Something that you said reminded them of the pain and trauma they hadn't healed, of the abusers they had never confronted. In that moment, they decided that you were the cause of their suffering. They twisted the story in their mind until you became the perfect villain that they were looking to get rid of. And from that lens, they convinced themselves that you didn't deserve to live, that your death would bring happiness and closure, that God, in some warped sense of justice, would grant their request and take you out easily and quietly. Their coworkers agreed. It made perfect sense. Now, of course, the coworkers, they didn't understand what the whole truth was because they weren't entirely honest with them. They made you seem like Lucifer incarnate to them. They didn't just want you gone. They felt entitled to your absence and the profit that would come therefrom from it. After all, it only made sense. It was justice. But you didn't die. And when you didn't die and it didn't take, something inside you cracked open. You began to sense a dark presence around you. But you also felt another presence, one that was warm and familiar. And you ascended and you rose and you awoken. And you remembered your ancestors and you remembered God. And you started to wake up at exactly the right times. You avoided danger without knowing why. Inevitably, you two grew apart and you moved out. And all those times when you wanted to say yes, your spirit learned to say no. Because this something divine was taking over your life. And they could feel the shift. They couldn't name it, but they knew something was up and something had changed because they were all too assured that you wouldn't suspect a thing. Now you ascending, and they are spiraling. Your energy begins to return. Not the tired kind that limps through the day, but the charged kind that stands as sacred power. You reclaimed your power. Your dreams came messages. Your body began to heal. You opened your heart to the unseen world, and you felt your ancestors wrap their arms around you to protect you. Your crown chakra blazed open as you began to understand the universe differently. You spoke differently. And they tried to reach out into the ethers and touch you energetically. But the touch no longer reached you because you were covered, you were protected, you were reclaimed, and they were being left behind. They watched from the outside, baffled. They asked their friends, they asked their handlers, they asked their supervisors strange questions. They hovered at the edges of your social media, anonymously looking for searches of signs of your collapse that they thought would come. They wanted you to break, but they saw you shine. Others in their cult questioned how this was possible. They brought in practitioners, experts, all the best, and yet none of it worked and none of it made sense. The despair should have stuck with you, the grief, the pain. Their prayers for your downfall should have manifested. You should have lost the will to live. You should have had a heart attack by now. But you became the contradiction they couldn't understand. You were supposed to be gone, and instead you were reborn. You confused them because you kept rising and ascending. You confused them because their darkness did not swallow your light. And so, what happened then? It seemed like a new covenant was being formed. You didn't just survive. You didn't just endure. You transmuted and you transformed. You no longer looked back with hate. You looked back with understanding. You saw their wounds. You saw their damage. You saw their deep down suffocating pain. You saw the lies they told themselves, the ones that they wanted to believe about you, to control the situation. They thought that with your demise, they could reach the life of their dreams. Their mentor, their teacher, had trained them well in the dark ways, but you refused to be their sacrifice. You refused to be a casualty of their trauma, a casualty of their immaturity, and their friends who led them down this dark path told them to profit at your expense. You chose to become a covenant of light. You chose to walk with the ancestors, with God, with the truth. You chose to trust your intuition and honor your gifts. And in so doing, you broke the cycle for yourself and for those who will come after you, because you will never be caught off guard again. They were not your punishment. They were your initiation. They were your test. They unwittingly became the path of your evolution. They thought they were going to build a throne off of your corpse, that what they constructed was not your grave, but eventually realized it became your altar. You walked away, not empty, but full of divine wisdom, full of resilience, full of a power that they could never understand and never replicate. They wished they could have it for themselves, but they had made all the wrong choices. You don't live in fear and betrayal. You walk in discernment. You live in your ancestral memory. You are aligned with God, and they will never understand it. Not truly, because they were never meant to. The coven they reported to was disappointed as well, as they thought that they would share their life insurance proceeds with them, that it would do a great deal to their church. And they'll never forget you, and at times they'll never understand why you never retaliated. After all, they would have deserved it. But in you, you realized that you were far beyond them, that you had a grander future that could ever be imagined, and you didn't need to settle a score with them. You forgave them for your own evolution, your own learning, your own initiation, your own ascension. And they will never understand that, because all they understand is profiting, betrayal, and backstabbing. So you are truly rising to something truly special. And they will have to watch your rise from the sidelines, but they never trusted you anymore. And if I don't see you, just remember, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.